Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm Tully, and today we're doing the final review for Deadstone. The video you're seeing right now is, of course, the game, Deadstone, currently available on Zura for the low price of $8.99. The music you'll be hearing in the background is España Cañi, a looped version. It's a paso doble, traditional Spanish/Portuguese music. You can look it up on the internet if you want to. First things first, I apologize for the several delays in presentation of this video, but there have been so many things I've had to do lately, and most of them snuck up on me because I have really bad organizational skills. So a lot of the stuff I've been doing for the past week or 2 weeks, I had no idea I would have to do. Let's ignore that, shall we, in order to get the game out. Now, for those of you who remember the first impressions video, I did say I'd have to play this game for quite some more time. I played through the entire campaign twice, both side A, all of them side A. I tried on normal difficulty, then I tried on a harder difficulty. I enjoy it, but of course there's a couple of things I had to talk first. I will not go over the mechanics for the game. You can just look it up. Quite frankly, the game is easy to understand. This is pretty much the entire game right here. It's a top-down shooter / tower defense game, although the tower defense elements do come in quite some time later. The main objective, of course, being to 1. Survive, 2. Not let the infected reach the end of the map, and therefore you losing colonists. As you can see here, kiting is actually about strategy, but that's not what we're talking about today. Here's the deal. I am going to start with the issues I have with the game, as is, because that allows me to focus on the bad, and then allows me to focus on the good later. It's good. I prefer that way. Main issue I have with the game, of course, is the way that it looks. The aesthetic of the game is really weird. The sprites are odd. The animations are not exactly the best, and frankly, the background. Well, let's just say this: the background is repetitive because, as you can see, it's pretty much going to be this exact same background for the main missions. And then the survival and colonist rescue missions are going to be the exact same background or minor variations of it. After a while, your eyes will start just getting weird because you're going to be seeing the exact same thing over and over again. I do understand this is a first game for the developer, I believe, but visually not appealing. The sprites and the background do not match in the slightest. And frankly, I think it just looks way too weird. Some of the later enemies, like for instance the commander type and the teleporter type, just look so completely out of place that it's almost ridiculous, really. And frankly, a lot of the time I was playing the game and I was thinking, well, it looks kind of nice-ish, and then you start really looking at it and you realize this is really a simplistic art style. Doesn't exactly lend itself well to any game, but I assume, and in my honest opinion, you can just kind of look away from that. It's a first experience, and frankly, you can't expect everyone to be an artistic genius. The core gameplay is there, and it's perfectly there. I have not experienced a single bit of bug. Seriously, not a single fucking bug has been experienced in my several hours of gameplay, which is more than I can say for many, many AAA titles, really. And frankly, that is a major plus on my end for the developer. This game, I don't know if this game has bugs, but if it does, I have not seen them. Just kite this guy over here. There we go. I have not seen any bugs. The game hasn't crashed yet. There was a couple of freezes here and there, but aside from that, there was pretty much nothing. I have to say this game is incredibly well optimized. It runs really well. It doesn't stutter. It doesn't do anything, really. I like it. I've seen plenty of games with a hell of a lot more budget than this, not nearly half as well optimized as this game, and frankly, that is a major plus on the developer side. So, the art style being clunky and the art style just being, frankly, ugly at times, I believe is a reasonable trade-off for a game that is, in fact, fun, because the game is fun. Don't think otherwise. The game is fun. You will have a lot of fun playing this game if you can look beyond the fact that the art style is just really freaking horrendous at times, really. The commander type sprites, for instance, just really look weird. The hands look like spatulas. The teleport types look that they have antennas on them instead of just bits of metal. Yada yada yada. The background is ridiculous, so forth and so forth. Moving on now, shall we? Round's over? Round's over. Another thing I do have to say is I did not like the way that the story was handled. Not the story, the way the story was handled. Difference here. I just, do that one. Artwork, there you go. I did not like the fact that there is a story, and you can piece the story together through the various bits and pieces of dialogue that you get at the beginning of each level. Not each level, but most levels, like the one you see here. You can piece together the story, you can piece together people's personalities, especially because the dialogue screen does tell you how they're reacting in terms of body language and sometimes internal thinking. But the way the story handled does not... First of all, the story does not lend itself well to this type of game, because most of the game is going to be you shooting at waves of zombies, and in between that, you get these amounts of backstory and dialogue that shows that there's stuff happening in the background that you don't really have any access to. You can't see most of the stuff that they're discussing on the dialogue sections. They're going to be talking about this and that and whatever, but you're not going to be seeing it. So basically, you're going to be feeling like you're missing out on something, and... forgot to, reload there. And frankly, when you feel like you're missing out on something, that is always, always a bad thing in a game. It's like, you keep hearing about the way people are reacting, the way people are acting inside Deadstone, the actual facility Deadstone. But you never get to see it, because the game itself is just you looking at zombies and just doing this over and over again. I'm gonna die now, aren't I? I'm gonna die. There we go. This is on very hard difficulty, by the way. That's what I have to start. Here's the point. The story in itself is really patently weird. I don't like the way it's handled, because you're going to be seeing all these tidbits. They're going to be talking about how they're feeling, how they're reacting. They're going to be talking about all this kind of stuff that you just don't get to see, because the game itself, the actual gameplay, does not let you see it. You're going to be hearing about conflicts inside Deadstone, a crisis inside Deadstone, but at the end of the day, it's going to be you on this patch of land shooting at zombies. And I understand that you want to have a story, and the story, if presented, I can imagine would be amazing, but the way it is done right here does not lend itself well. Most of the time, we're just going to be looking at the dialogue boxes going, meh, because frankly, that's all you really can do. There's not a lot else you can do. You can talk about the story all day long, but you're not going to be seeing the story, and that's one of the points where I really thought this game could have done better. In fact, another thing that I have to say, that does in fact, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say is related to that, is voice acting. The story, the one that is there, would benefit so fucking much from the voice acting. And the voice acting is another thing I have that I believe is a minus in this game. There's voice acting in the beginning cutscene, there's voice acting in the ending cutscene, and then there's voice acting for reloading. And even then, it's not all the time. It seems awfully inconsistent, and frankly, a lot of the points in the story would have benefited a lot from some voice acting. If you actually have the guy who did Blake go up and actually read his lines, find someone for every other character and have them read their lines, it would have benefited the story so much, I have no idea. Because most of the time you can imagine these people reacting in certain ways, but you can't really see it because they don't have any voice acting. And you're just going to be wondering, how do they... A lot of the time I was wondering, how does this guy sound like? How is he saying this? What is this? You can tell me how he feels all day long, but if you don't get to see it, then it's kind of useless. You can tell me someone feels threatened or feels sad, but it's a main rule in writing and movies. And other types of media that rely on telling a story. Show, don't tell. I can read about how someone feels terrible, or someone feels angry, or someone feels whatever, but if you don't get to show it, it's a very big hole left in the middle. Frankly, I still think this game would have benefited a lot from some proper voice acting outside the cutscenes and the reloading animations. It's just the most ridiculous inconsistency I have ever seen. Why Reloading. Of all the things, why did you give reloading voice acting? It sounds unnecessary is the word I'm looking for here. It really does sound completely and utterly unnecessary. You just put reload. It's not exactly what you would call crucial to the game experience. It's really, really weird. Frankly, that's pretty much it I have for complaints about the game, because this game is a casual shooter, so not exactly looking for incredibly high production values. It is fun, though I did of course have to just point that out. There's a lot of stuff in this game that could have been ameliorated. Art style and the way the story was handled. In fact, I would not have mattered if there was no story, if we didn't get these dialogues, we just got the random notifications about what's happening or whatever. And frankly, there's even a mode for it. There's 3 modes to the story, and one of the modes is just let me shoot stuff. I didn't actually try it, but I'm assuming it's basically just you following the campaign, except no story. Which, don't get me wrong, there's people who would do that, but I kind of like my story. And when I see a story like this that is not taken to its full potential, that I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to implicate with that. That's pretty much it, though. That was the bad. Those were my 2 main issues with the game. I will get to another one in a moment. But now, the good. Gameplay is solid. It's incredibly repetitive, and sometimes it gets incredibly boring, but it's solid. It's there. It is not 99% of the time, it's not unfair. It treats you well. There are, of course, several types of enemies. The one thing I do have to say, this game has plenty of types of enemies. You have traditional infectees. They're not zombies. Traditional infectees. You have several different types of infectees that you unlock and they just start appearing over the course of the game. You have several atmospheric and climate conditions, like, you have night. You have, well, that's not, night's not really an atmospheric condition, whatever. You have night, you have sandstorms, you have lightning strikes, you have, of course, the holes I think you saw before. And frankly, the first time I saw a hole, I didn't see another hole for like 2 levels, and I thought, wait, is this going to be like that one thing? Like that? It's going to be that one hole on that one level, and I'm never going to see it again. But no, the holes kept appearing throughout the game. This game introduces mechanics to you and doesn't actually just, send them away. Everything you meet in the game, you will continue to meet until the game is over. And that is a major plus as far as I'm aware of. This game does not introduce mechanics only to then forget them because they just can't be bothered. No, you're going to be facing increasingly large number of things that want to kill you and eat you for breakfast. All of them will continuously appear, will continuously make your life hell, across the entire game experience. And I very much like that. It forces you to, even with turrets, it just forces you to keep on your feet. Because keep in mind, this game gets incredibly freaking easy once you unlock turrets. And because turrets are basically a snowball, you get one turret, right? You get one turret, and then you basically use it to farm enemies, and then you get more money to get another turret to farm more enemies, to get more money to get more turret for more enemies. And it got to a point in the game where I had to do nothing. I upgraded my turrets so freaking much, all I had to do was sit back and let the turrets do the job. And that is unacceptable. I have that problem with Outpost Save Yourselves, even among the freaking crashes. I did still have to say the game was incredibly easy once you got turrets. You just sit behind the turrets and wait until they do your job. So basically, a lot of the levels, it was just me spending upwards of 5 minutes just waiting. Because keep in mind, the game does in fact get longer the more you play. There's a couple of references to the food stocks ending in 3 months, but you get to play the day 40-something. And that's pretty much it. You get to play the day 40-something, and the more you play, the longer the stages will become. To the point, like I said, where I had shit tons of turrets, and all I had to do was just sit behind them for 5, 6, 7 minutes and do nothing and wait for the game to end. It was incredibly boring. I remember at one point I actually left the computer to make a sandwich, and when I got back, the turrets were still in perfect condition. You get auto repair turrets, you get auto loading turrets, you get turrets that can just, do everything for themselves. You just need to stay there on the very off chance that maybe one of them will get slightly damaged and needs repair, and that's pretty much it. The only point in which the game gets any challenging is during these ones, the survival type missions, which frankly I still don't understand. Why would Blake just go out into the middle of nowhere for no discernible reason? You don't get anything from these missions except experience. The colonist type missions, for instance, have you go out into the wilderness, but if you succeed, you get one colonist, which of course allows you basically to have a one-up. Another one-up. But here, you don't get anything. You get experience from killing the infectees. And that's it. I don't understand why it happens. I really don't. And it led to one of my most frustrating points in this game. In pretty much the most games I've ever played. Day 38, I don't know if this is procedurally generated. Day 38, it doesn't feel like it because I didn't get the day 38 again. I had the same thing. Day 38 was the most ridiculous difficulty spike I have seen in my entire life. Up until that point, the game pretty much lended itself to the play how you want style. Of course, I chose to play with turrets, because 1, it's easy, 2, I like turrets. That's why I play a lot of Engineer on Team Fortress 2, and I'm going to die here. This gets incredibly hard. Can't imagine how Day 38 is on this difficulty setting. Here's the deal. The first time I played this game around, it was Day 38, and I did it on normal difficulty. Because I never played this game before, I didn't know what I was in for, so I played it in normal difficulty. Up until that point, I was playing the game with turrets, and I get to Day 38, and it was a survival type mission. Now keep in mind, the colonist rescue type missions do in fact allow you to bring a set number of turrets, depending on your mechanic score. If I'm not mistaken, the maximum number you can bring are 3 unupgraded turrets. 3, with maximum mechanics, basically. And that's good. It allows you to have some breather, but it still requires you to be on your toes, because they're not upgraded. Well, they're upgraded in terms of like auto-loading and auto-repairing, but not in terms of actual weapons. But then the survival type missions, as you can see here, do not let you bring anything. This is you with your guns. And up until Day 38, I managed to hold out perfectly. I mean, perfectly. Pardon me. Then, Day 38 shows up, and I had to spend, and I'm not kidding here, 3 hours. 3 fucking hours. Because at that point, I could feel the developer going, I don't know how to present the challenge to you, so here's everything. Day 38, on both occasions I played this through, was essentially me being given everything. You'd have every type of enemy, literally every type of enemy. You'd have sandstorms, you'd have lightning storms, and keep in mind, lightning storms are supposed to just make your minimap unusable, but the bright flashes do in fact stop you from seeing what's on the actual screen, and they just kept happening. You had shit tons of teleporting enemies. Keep in mind that up until Day 38, you'd have probably like 3, maybe 4 teleporters every level, spread across the level, mind you. And then you get to Day 38, and you have 1 every 10 or 15 seconds. And it's like 200 seconds of level? It's ridiculous. You're going to be spending most of your time just trying to figure out how the hell am I supposed to survive. The game just throws everything in the kitchen sink at you. It is not challenging. It is frustrating as hell. It's ridiculous. I actually just stopped playing for like 15 minutes, went to take a walk around the house, put my ideas in order, came back, spent another hour trying to figure it out, and then through sheer blind luck, because keep in mind this game is sometimes heavily dependent on a random number god, for sheer blind luck and good drops, I managed to survive, because the game was a bit more charitable and dropped a couple more med kits, and that way I managed to survive the onslaught. But keep in mind, Day 38, at least for me, was ridiculously unfair. It was the one point. It was stupid, really, because the survival missions up until that point were perfectly fine. I had nothing against them. But it was at day 38 that it just amped up the difficulty to ridiculous levels. That was the issue I had with it. It screamed, I don't know how to do a challenge, so I'm just going to throw everything. Because it was. The developer just throws everything in your face. Everything he ever put in the game that made the game challenging just gets on your face at the same time. It's less challenging, more frustrating as hell, as said before. But, as I also said, it's the one point in the game where the game is actually unfair, because the game is actually pretty damn fair most of the time if you know what you're doing. Like, for instance, here, I spent all my points in mechanics, because I'm holding up for turrets, which meant I'm losing out on constitution and marksmanship, which doesn't allow me to use weapons as effectively, as you can see here, which means I'm having a really hard time with a stock pistol. And frankly, that was the issue I had with day 38, which is, day 38 basically told me, if you don't invest in weapons, you're going to be screwed. And even then, keep in mind, the following survival mission after day 38, which was the last survival mission ever, I had every damn weapon in the game. Like, all the best ones, and I still just barely scraped by it and retry the other mission like 3 or 4 times, because it was still that hard. The game just threw everything at you and made it an incredibly frustrating experience. But again, those are the last 2-3 survival missions. Those are the ones, basically. Most of the game is absolutely fair. At times, most of the game, like this actual segment here, is really boring if you get the turrets out. But most of the time, the gameplay is completely fair, except for those 2 situations, which of course you can argue were me putting myself in a niche that I just couldn't escape from. Which, frankly, would be... yeah, it would actually be a good point that you would say there. Just buy something here. But here's the point. Gameplay is solid. I love the gameplay in this game. It's extremely repetitive. It's extremely boring at times, but I like it. It's fun. The simple fact that I wanted to keep playing the game should tell you enough how it's not groundbreaking, but it's fun, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure you do know what I mean. It's not new. It's not anything revolutionary. But what it is, it's pretty damn fun. Soundtrack is not exactly my preference. I have nothing against it. It's not exactly my type of music, but pretty sure it's other people's type of music, and I don't exactly have anything against it. In terms of sound, is another issue I have with the game that I should have actually talked about. The sound assets in this game are incredibly repetitive, and at times break the immersion. For instance, I'm sure you've seen in the video quite a couple of times the message "They are coming." And the message "They are coming" is accompanied by a loud horde grunt, which to me sounds more like a meat hall than anything else, but whatever. See what I mean there? There's a small flash and I can't use the minimap? Yeah. But the thing is, the problem I have with it is that the sound effects halt. It's like you hear the rah, and then it just stops. Like now. See? It just cuts off. It breaks the immersion completely because instead of having a growl, a guttural wave growl that just fades off into the distance, you have a growl. It keeps at a constant sound level, and then it just disappears. It just cuts off. That is bad game design there. It's basically like you put the goddamn file in Audacity, clicked the point, and said delete beyond. And frankly, it broke the immersion a lot. If you can call this immersion, of course. It broke the immersion because suddenly I was hearing this horde just vanishing. And frankly, sound design in this game, when it's not being repetitive, it's being faulty. And the developer should really work on that. It's been updated once, basically. It's still a pretty new game. And it's a new experience for the developer. So I can't really fault him too much for this. But I can't say it. I can't say it. You're indie. You're not immune to criticism. Here's the point. Sound design in this game needs work, basically. But is it fun? I got that one. Awesome. I give up now. There we go. Here's the point. Is the game fun? Yes. The game is fun. The game is, I would say, in its current state, not exactly worth the... How can I say this? It's currently $8.99. It was worth the... Pardon me. It was... Let me just remove that one and put this one in. Equip. And, okay. It was worth the price when it was cheaper, but frankly, for $8.99, I would say wait some more, wait until it gets a bit more updated, then come back, because this game does still have a beta mode, which is the survival mode. It's still beta. No, don't think about it otherwise. The developer himself told me in email that he considers it to be beta. It just came out in update 1.01. So, for the current price tag, I would say the game does have some replayability, in that if you choose the side B of the story, you get this ridiculous silliness switch. Suddenly the game turns incredibly meta, it starts referencing itself, it starts getting really, really tropey. Trope overdose would be the word I'm looking for here. It's funny for about 5 seconds until you realize that, yeah, this humor is predictable. It's funny, don't get me wrong, but it's been done before. The whole self-referential video game thing isn't anything new. It's good for a couple of laughs, but the fact is, the game itself, the actual core mechanic, the gameplay, the whole campaign is still the same. It doesn't really change. And frankly, the one thing this game could have had was replayability, and it just doesn't. So, if you want to spend basically 9 euros, or a regional equivalent, you can go ahead. This game is fun. You're basically going to be buying into a game. It's still being in development. Don't get me wrong. It's still sorta-ish in development / being updated. Not exactly what you would call early access, but there are still a couple of changes that are going to be made. The developer himself pretty much told me that in a private email. So, if you want to spend 9 euros or a regional equivalent on this, go ahead. I wouldn't exactly call it a bad call, because frankly it isn't. This is a fun game, don't get me wrong. It's a very fun experience, and you won't regret it. But, of course, if you're strapped for cash, I would say, well, just wait until this goes on sale again, and buy it, because frankly, this game is really worth buying. I like it. I am not going to give it a number score, because I fucking hate number scores. And I gave one to Outpost Save Yourselves because the developer asked me to do it, and frankly, for a free game, I'll do it. Whatever. The developer asked me to give it a number score. If the developer of this game asked me to do it, fine, I'll put it there. But you know what I do? I don't like giving number scores. I think they are ridiculous, unnecessary, and incredibly simplistic. Not to mention that it allows for some pretty ridiculous fandom moments. Not fandom, fandom. Yeah. So, Burnalot Enterprises color wheel? Burnalot Enterprises color wheel. This thing is a solid green. It really is. It's fun to play. It plays well. It's incredibly stable, more so than a lot of games out there. I have no qualms with this game. I've never had a single crash, but a couple of freezes here and there. But that was pretty much just literally a couple of freezes. 2, maybe 3 at most. Runs well, doesn't break, doesn't bug, doesn't do anything. This game is incredibly well optimized, and barring the difficulty spike on day 38 and the subsequent survival mission, which will knock you completely out of your goddamn socks if you haven't invested in weapons. Barring that, the game is fair, the game is fun, and you won't exactly rage all that much. Hopefully. So if you want to buy this game, go right ahead. It's currently available on Deserve for the low price of $8.99. It's not exactly cheap, but it's not exactly expensive either. Let's go there, shall we? So if you can go beyond the incredibly cheap-looking graphics and the fact that sometimes the sound effect will just completely break your immersion, then it's a good purchase, really. Tully Burnalot Enterprises color wheel. This thing is a very solid green. High green. It skips on being a blue, mostly because it's nothing new, really. It's a new game, but it's nothing new with the genre. So don't exactly expect anything groundbreaking, but don't exactly expect anything boring, because the game is quite fun, really. if anything, because I kind of wanted to know what would happen with the story. And I hate the developer because it ends in a fucking cliffhanger. I want to know what happens after the cliffhanger, but I don't know if the developer's planning on making a sequel to this. I hope he is, because I want to know what happens. Unless, of course, the objective was to intentionally leave it hanging. Which I freaking hate that. I really do. Regardless, thank you for tuning in, and please stay tuned into the next video, which will probably not be a week from now. So, thank you, and goodbye.